Good morning. Well, it's morning here. I actually started a video today. Today's June 6th. It is my 8th video. Will be my 8th posting. So it's funny because I had no idea what I was going to say today, and then I was going along and I was making this video, and then all of a sudden I got this light on my camera stopped. Everything stopped because I had run out of space. So I had to go and clean out my my camera, which I should have done before. I just, anyway, these videos take a lot of room on my little tiny computer, this little mini smartphone, which is such a miraculous thing. I still marvel at, I guess I'll never stop marveling at the incredibleness, the incredible technology that we have, this little tiny computer that fits in our hand. And it really is a computer. I do so many things on it. So, so today, in my meditation, I was thinking about confession. I know you're not supposed to think, but I can't help it. These things keep coming in, and I try and clear my mind, but it's never just blank. But I recognize that it's the being there and just showing up is really important. So, confession, the confessional, and I'm calling this Confessions of the Sacred Prostitute because it really is confessions, and the confession is a clearing of the soul in a way, so we can move forward. And it doesn't have to be just about sins or things that we perceive or sins or whatever, but what's really in the old days in a confessional where you're only speaking to the priest, you don't really, he gives you absolution because you go and say a bunch of prayers and stuff, but really I find listening to other people, when I read other people, when they're authentic and they're telling their truth, I can relate to it in some way. I can always relate to it just as being a human being. So the confession, when we can all hear it and see it, can be a really healing space for us, because we can relate in one way or another to the humanness of another person. So a friend of mine reminded me that yesterday when I was telling her I was kind of freaking out about what I was doing, my intention for these videos, why I was doing this in the first place. And really that was the truth of it for me. The reason that I started doing this is because I needed to get over myself. My coming out of a spiritual closet, so to speak, because my life has always been connected to something really deep and profound, and maybe I just knew it wasn't attached to an organization. So, and really through all the things that I have done, my formal training as a costumer was full of research, and half the time I was reading about things that had nothing to do with costumes, but had to do with spiritual things, symbolism, meanings of things, old texts that I would come upon that I had no idea, learning about Lilith, and I think that was in a book about Zoroastrianism. Anyway, sometimes I don't remember all of the fine detail, but just the story of Lilith, and that in the beginning, there's like two versions in the Old Testament about the story of creation, and one is the one that we always think of, Eve, where she's created out of Adam, but actually there was a one before that where two people, male and female, were created equally, and the man, Adam, and then there was Lilith, and Lilith did not want to bow down to Adam, so Lilith left the Garden of Eden. She was equal to him, but she didn't want him laying on top of her, basically. She wanted to be equal, and so she left. And then the mythology is that, and then God took one of Adam's ribs and created Eve, and so then here's this submissive woman to Adam because she's created from him, not even just from God, but from Adam. And then Lilith is turned into this diabolical being who turns herself into a snake and comes and tempts Eve, right, into knowledge of herself. And then Eve is becomes the great sin, and all women are born of sin because they're from Eve, and so we can't even be absolved of sin. We're just born into it, which, what a bunch of hooey. And people live this, and they've believed it, and I know it's changing over time, but, this is not an old story. If you go and look at many mythologies of different, way before the Bible, the Judeo-Christian, Muslim ideas that come from the Old Testament, there were all these stories before that were created, and a lot of them, this isn't where I was going to go today, but it's quite interesting how the stories change and how culture changes, and then it could be a very goddess-oriented, giving, loving, nurturing, and then it'll change to one where it's more male-oriented, and then that tends to be the downfall of women. Okay, so that really wasn't where I was going, except for I was talking about confession. Here's my confession. I have a lot of thoughts, and they're not always concise. Okay, so today I do intend on making another video that is a painting, but I need to be a little more organized in it. I really love making those prayer books, and I realized, though, that the video maybe was a little long-winded. I'd like to make it a little more concise. It's sometimes the editing and having to refilm and stuff, it takes a lot of time. So I'm trying to just go forward, okay? So not everything's perfect. I'm a one-woman crew here, and that's okay. So if you're interested, you keep watching and seeing what happens next. And I would imagine by the time that 100 days are up, I will have grown an awful lot. So, what was the other thing I wanted to tell you? Oh, so I had this other vision in my thing come to me in my meditation. So when I was a little kid, I have three older sisters, 2 of which are like 10 and 7 years older than me. So when I was a little kid, they were entering teenhood. And so, they were doing what teens do. And so one time my parents left us in charge of, then my other sister's 3 years older than me, so I have 3 older sisters. And so anyway, Belinda and Dale were in charge of Michelle and I when Mom and Dad went somewhere. And I don't know why they did, they just thought it was so fun. They picked me up. I was a little kid, probably about 4 or something, and they picked me up and they held me over the toilet. And I was terrified. I thought I was going to be sucked down into the toilet, right? And so my sister, Belinda, she just came to visit recently, and she remembered that, and she talked about how later when she was in college she read about psychology and about how damaging that could be to a person of when I was a little kid, that age, that you don't understand about what's really going on. You don't have that sort of abstract thinking. So, but what's really funny, and this is that as an adult, I have had these recurring visions of being a woman, like a priestess, like an oracle, a person who was channeling the wisdom of the ages, or the messages from beyond, and then was venerated, but was considered a wise person, but because they didn't like what I was saying, I was thrown into this big cauldron. And I've had this recurring sort of this cauldron aspect of being thrown into it. And I just realized the connection. I was like, wow, that's really interesting that, I had that experience when I was a little kid. Okay, so that also brings up this thing. Did I just make all this up in my head, all these visions that I have, when I tune into people and I see this energy around me? Well, my experience has been that I can't make up things that is not relevant to me, the things that I say, that's not relevant to my life, but it certainly is relevant to the person whose visions that I see. I mean, the imagery that I see when I tune into them. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And I'm running out of time here because I really wanted to do this at 10 minutes. But so the last thing I wanted to say is that when I was about 18, I made a conscious choice to believe in reincarnation, and that we lived this life as a opportunity to learn lessons. I could not, absolutely could not make any other, there was no other way that I could live in this world. It's so insane. There's so many insane things that happen. There's so much hatred and horrible things that people do. There's just no other way that I could reconcile in my mind living in this world just if it were just this. I can't fathom that humanist idea that we're just born and then we die and that's it. There's no way. That just doesn't make any sense to me. There's just no way. There's got to be a bigger idea going on here. And it's a very complicated system. And I also don't, I think I have said before, I don't believe in God as being this being that sits out there and watches everything that's going on and decides who's going to be chosen and who's not. That's just garbage. I don't believe that either. So I really think that we, each and every one of us, has the responsibility to be looking at our crap. And everything is a tool for that. Everything's a tool to open yourself up to new ways of learning about who you are. And that will be maybe I'll talk about tomorrow, because I started reading, I've read this book before by Janine Roth, God, Food, and Women. And in it she's talking about using food as a spiritual tool to understand yourself. Oh my God! So that is a trip. I've read that book before and I had to come back to it, because I just couldn't grasp it before. I wasn't ready to hear it, and now I think I'm ready to hear it, because I'm starting to make some strides in recognizing that part of me, this part that needs to be filled up, that I'm recognizing. I must be expanding. I'm opening up. Something's happening, and it's really beautiful, and that's part of this. So I really appreciate you, whoever is watching this, that you are witnessing this and that you're part of this. And if you are interested in contacting me, you can leave a message, or you could, I'll put my website and my email on my site, on my YouTube site. I do have a website, by the way, and I need to get back to work and making it better. I do offer these readings, these energy readings, and other various things. Okay, so love to you. Love yourself. Be your best friend. It's a wonderful, joyous thing to become your best friend. And it's amazing the people who come to you, who are willing to love you and mirror back to you the love that you are. Oh my gosh. Okay. Blessings.